Hello and welcome to this CodeBuddies.org live code hangout. Today we're going to be creating some mockups for a prototype app we're building here with Django. In a previous live code session, we created a Bootstrap quick start project, and on GitHub I found out you can configure a project or a repository to be a template that can be used as the basis for other projects. Instead of forking or somehow otherwise copying the project, you can just click this use this template button, and it will take the project files and structure and create a new repository. It doesn't preserve the commit history, so that's one downside there, but that's okay. That's the intended purpose of the Django Bootstrap Quick Start, was basically a template. So I've got the template copied here locally, and the idea here is I'm prototyping an app, and I've been kind of just tossing and turning this idea around and trying to figure out the best way to go forward with a minimum viable project. And I've done a couple mockups, UI mockups in Canva, and looked at whether I should try a rapid prototyping programming language like Flutter. But I believe just if I stick closer to HTML and Django, I can get the front end mocked up and then start considering the back end architecture, so to speak, the data model and kind of views and things like that that would power essentially some static templates that I'm going to create today. So without further ado, let's get this project running. So it's using Poetry. And we'll create a shell in the current project. We'll install Django. Now I can just do these HTML mockups, of course, just with HTML and CSS and any framework. So even for this stage, Django is probably a bit of overkill. But I'm going to define, since I'm just thinking for a moment, just some core URLs and template views to serve static templates. So I will essentially be writing CSS and HTML. But since this is a kind of a prototype app, and I'm going to be starting to develop the back end, the data model and views, as I mentioned, having these templates ready-made in the project could save me a little bit of time at that stage. I'm not trying to go too much overkill or too much with premature optimization, so to speak, but I believe some static templates won't be harmful here. So I'll create a folder to kind of group them all together. And if we look, let's see, let's create a super user. Well, if that's not necessary, in fact. Okay, so we're going to project directory. I believe if we just run the server, it's going to warn us about the migrations being unapplied, which I can just apply those to get rid of that warning, but essentially it'll work. We got a Bootstrap quick start, Django quick start with Bootstrap enabled. So let's go ahead and run the migrations just to get rid of those. All right. It's weird that it doesn't show the R here. Might as well create the super user while I'm here. Super secret development password, and just run the server. All right, it's the same thing. We have basic login and logout. That's about as far as the kind of quick start project takes us. So the idea of this app is essentially to create care groups. The more I think about it, the idea is kind of expanding, but the initial idea was you have a loved one, family member who needs some assistance in life in general. You know, all of us, I think, could be good candidates, but in particular, you know, as we age, we become more dependent again on close family members, like going into a second childhood in some ways. And oftentimes there's sort of an informal network of care providers that emerges, and you know, it can be difficult sometimes coordinating activities like going grocery shopping or perhaps to the doctor's appointments, things like that. Sometimes that can fall to one person, the primary responsibility, or sometimes they can be neglected. So this idea is to help people care for either one another as a mutual aid group or a particular person as a focal point of care, and give them a simple and intuitive tool that helps like foster or facilitate communication and coordination of basic activities. Things like appointments, shopping, and just, you know, lifestyle activities like culture or physical activity, all those types of things. We'll flesh out the data model going forward, but that's the general idea. And it started with the hub and spoke idea about caring for a particular person based on personal experience and experience of a friend of mine, a couple of friends of mine who had similar situations, either being the recipient of the direct care or being one of the people most responsible for coordinating the care of another loved one. The idea of the mutual care groups, though, has a good potential as well. I think we could use that in general with, you know, social distancing has kind of made that apparent how kind of fragile our social networks can be, and sometimes superficial. So having sort of an intentional care group, I think, could be very impactful on people's lives and well-being. So these are the thoughts that are going around this idea, and we're going to try to get a little bit higher fidelity here and make it look a little bit nice. So the idea seems, you know, people can take it seriously. So I've created a groups HTML. Let's extend base HTML. That's one nice thing about using the Django templating language, is going to let me kind of compose these views out of different components. And to that end, I've already installed the Bootstrap framework, which has several core components, and I'm considering adding this Shoelace web component library. I'm not so certain I'll be adding it, but Bootstrap provides some basic components out of the box, and it has it's very mature. It's been around, and it's got a great community adoption, as well as a lot of active contributors to the code. Shoelace doesn't have those qualities of longevity or maybe community momentum, which is a little bit concerning if I want to invest in something that's going to be part of a project for the long run. But Shoelace does build on some important values as well, such as standardization. So it's using web components, which is a standardized way of defining composable elements for applications, particularly web applications. It can be installed by a CDN, so I don't need to introduce any build tooling or anything like that. Accessibility is a key concern. You know, that's an ongoing thing. I've read a little bit of Corey LaVisca's writings, just briefly, checking out their sort of philosophy and perspective on what's driving the development of the framework. So they are the main developer, so this is a potentially, can be a potential downside when adding a component to a project, that that developer stops supporting this project and you're kind of left with a vacuum. But that can happen with large projects as well. We have another product built with Meteor.js that essentially we're concerned about the health and longevity of the Meteor project and needing to maybe port that over to something with a little bit long-term viability, like Django. So all that aside, I do think there are some nice components, and these web components are sort of forward-thinking, even if Corey LaVisca does find themselves otherwise going different directions in life or otherwise occupied. I like their philosophy, and it has some particular components that would be adding a nice kind of aesthetic to this app at an early stage, like the avatar. So kind of leaning towards it. I'll see if we get to that point today of introducing it. We might just get there, but let's go ahead and get back to the code. I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of a perspective of what the purpose and sort of a brief roadmap of this project. So we go back to the URLs pie, and I'm not going to necessarily create a whole app for this, but what I can do is I will do just add these together, and we'll create a template view so I can factor them out. Kind of easy, they stand out a little bit better that way. And the path here will be groups, and we'll do mockups. And so what do we get? The blog content. Now I don't know if this will be like showing my groups or available groups. I should also create a little roadmap in this README to kind of give an idea of what the major components are, what are minimum viable, and what might be useful at a later date, or what are just basically ideas. All of it is just idea at this point. But one idea is that the groups would be kind of an invite only, so not like a public directory of groups necessarily. You create a group, it's private. Then you invite your friends by email, perhaps by phone number. Later we might get into sort of mobile app territory with Flutter, but for right now I'm going to stick with just Django. So email would be a natural way. So anyway, this would be like my groups or something like that. Let's just start there, and let's see if it works. Make sure everything's wired up. Good. All right, so we will start with Bootstrap probably. Essentially, we'll have a groups listing, and then each group will have its own page, and I'll kind of mock some URL parameters probably. Yep. So what would be a nice way to list these groups? Well, a list, I think list group. Or cards. I think cards is actually good because it has the picture and we want this to be personalized. And I think you can do a left or side aligned card. I've done this in a previous project, but for now we'll just do it at the top. I'm just seeing if they have, there we are. Oh, this looks pretty good actually. So and let's see if we can find a placeholder. Alarm pixel, something like that. And this is the hub and spoke group, so I don't know of another word for that. Think of it later. Don't have a name for the project either. So it'll be a person though. I'm looking for a person, picture, person, face. That's a good one. People. Unsplash recently, I think, changed their licensing terms. But maybe it was Pexels that's no, they changed this as well. I just want to be able to embed it. Arm pick some. Seems like there's a lot here. Oh, okay. How many people's faces though? Some nice ones. That's an interesting one. Well, shoot. I think a square should be good. All right, we'll just go with the placeholder. So. Cool. All right. It took a long time just to get a random picture on the page, but yeah, you get the point. All right, very cool. All right, I'm gonna grab some tea. I'll be right back. Let's see. Should be able to place these. Yeah, that works. And oh, they both. Okay, so they do come from Unsplash. Well, let's see if I can embed an Unsplash. I don't think that'll work. It worked. It's a little bit. Say Jane. All right, so that's progress. Good. Thank you for that tutorial. I'll come back to this. The weird thing. And it's a minor detail, but the image isn't filling the. Oh, there we go. I think I'll just have to get over that. I wonder if I can do, if I can specify a square crop. I don't I don't know if that'll work, but it froze. Yeah, actually that did work. Good. So 200 by 200 would be fine. Somehow it knows the focal point. That was kind of cool. Alright, so then we'll just add a URL for Jane's group, and then John's group we'll add in a moment. This is not super necessary. We'll figure out if it's a slug or unique identifier, but essentially with this card to be a link anywhere that you click on a card should take you to Jane group. So I don't know if this is the right way to go about it. Or there's just a more conventional way of doing this through links, buttons, action buttons on the card. You just follow the conventions. Stick with the conventions. And the deal is we're using the horizontal card orientation. But I think the buttons should show up right down here. So let's take a look. There's action buttons. Yeah, just put a standard button in there, okay. So that works. Starting to break the image formatting again, or the layout again. Let's see where the footer goes if I add that. Yeah, it has the same effect, and it's like this horizontal card is an afterthought almost. Kind of fragile, a little bit brittle. And that won't work, I guess. So essentially, we don't need a row. Just the card body, we don't need the column markup. Change the indentation. All right. here you have to manually break up the rows. That's unfortunate. Yeah, okay, so well, we get the point. All right, let's not fuss with the design too much. All right, change group. The basic idea is we want to show who's in the group and a list of activities. Probably can probably take inspiration from the GitHub user experience. If we look at, for example, I think I'm going to integrate this. That's a bit of a battle with the card. This is a new widget. Bootstrap card, but okay, not a big deal. If I go to GitHub real quick, though, we take a look at shoelace. You can say contributors, something like that, something small to the side, and the main area is for the primary function of the group, which is to facilitate activities. So we'll look at that. Let's go ahead and just try this out. These are nice web components. We can install it from CDN, the easiest way to do it. This comes with a little bit of JavaScript. Oh, Custy. All right, there we go. And if I put this in our base HTML, hopefully it won't collide with Bootstrap. End, down. Just give myself a comment here. In the beta. Now, since we're using JS Deliver, I don't know if I need this tag here, if I can use the semantic versioning. It hasn't been released. So I'm really going out on a limb here. But this is definitely a prototype UI. Prototype. So let's just see. F12, actually, in F5. Network requests. So we get, ooh, shoelace. Okay, it did pull in shoelace, I can see. Get this down there in the bottom there. Wow. Bunch of chunks. Wonder why it chunks it. Is it for each of the components? Very curious. I'm not going to argue with it, just haven't noticed that before. The timeline view a little bit. I mean, it loads fast. I'm not used to the Chrome developer tools, but okay, here we go. Network. So it starts with Bootstrap. Chain data. Starts getting this shoelace. Pulls in all these chunks. Boom. Alright. So we'll use the Bootstrap layout. We've already got a container in our base HTML. In a row with some columns. Two columns. This is kind of cool. Now I'm just going to figure out how the docs work. I hope I don't have to add these extra styles. could even be 50 by 50, but let's see if it works. 50 by 50, and we don't need the rounded thing. We don't need the background. Circle. Does that work? Yeah. We probably don't need this surrounding div. Let's see. Alright, cool. I'm gonna take a quick break, get some tea, bio break, and come back, add a couple more members, and work on the activities section. Thank you for bearing with me. All right, cool. We'll add a couple more members, and I believe an action like invite member would be kind of cool to convey the point that these are invite-only groups, maybe not necessarily public. So here we have card links. Members. Okay. That's weird. Row or the card footer, I think. So maybe that'll work. Go ahead and remember without that. Just looking for icon buttons. I think there's icons, right? Here we go. Oh, good. Extended. Let's see if there's a the icon font's already installed. And so then I'll just fix the icon. No. Alright, so how do we install that? All installation. Yeah, that's right. CDN. Base HTML, which I think is not open anymore. Okay. And did that work? Yes. Well, so let's. Yeah, I like that. Because it's an invite essentially. Via email perhaps. BI? Yeah, looks good. Let's take a look. A few more. Oh, here we go. Person plus is even better. Nice. That's not gonna work. I don't think float is quite what I'm after with that. start and end are the new nomenclature. Middle. Sorry. I don't know if float is an improvement there. Cool, we'll leave this open. I'm going to use these. And let's add a couple more members. So if I look for people, person, so cool. So now on the left side, probably don't need too much in terms of, for lack of a better word, chart junk, I think. just some line breaks should be good for separating items. On the left side, I like to show sort of activities. I think that's the main premise here, is that we coordinate activities together. Button X doesn't exist anymore. No, just small. It's as small as it gets. So we've got a column. So div row header to. So let's see. Header to. Trying to think if the card is a bit of overkill. Horizontal rule doesn't look so good. All right, cards. Because I'm not really making effective use of white space if I surround everything with like borders and stuff, backgrounds. Footer's a bit heavy. Surprised. These images. Yeah. Oh, I guess. We don't need the footer. That's one improvement. A little bit less busyness. And in this case, then the float, I think, starts to make sense. Which was float end. Or even a circle icon. Circle button, Bootstrap circle button. Could work. Let me see here, around a circle. Bootstrap icon button would be super nice. Yeah. And then if I just take the text out of there. And move that into heading. Almost. looks alright. It's not too bad. Just thinking about a little bit of layout. So this is kind of getting lost in the weeds, basically, but I want to move this to the top. Let's just add some cards to get the idea for these events. So I think this would be good. Now the card here can take up to full width. Which doesn't give you a whole lot to think with about, like a lot of higher level components here. Still got the inline styles. We don't need the row if these cards are going to be. Is going to be using 2 spaces, so that makes sense. Brackets line up. Take out the width. Yeah, we don't need the image. This is at level 3. All right, so this one should be calendar widget with date. Can you specify the date? That'd be interesting. Yeah, I'll just add the participants, I suppose, next. Okay, cool. And then a couple of other activity types, I guess, would be like a call or, yeah, like shopping, groceries, or just shopping in general, with some notes in there, I suppose. We want to be careful about storing too much information in the app. I think it's going to be one of our design principles of minimizing the information for particularly privacy and privacy concerns. And that we might be, these appointments are medical typically, and we don't want to store medical data if possible. So let's go ahead and add the participants on each card. So the participants list would look like, and of course the Jane would be the participant in each one, but let's see, Jane's face should be up there on the next to her name, I believe. Let's get that. She could even be in a hero image position, but that looks pretty good. Jane's group. starting to think of project names and domain names. But there's a lot. I'll look into that later. So we're going to want to add an activity. Similar here. Add activity. And add a couple more. But I want to add the participants real quick. Basically the bottom of the card. Let's see where it renders by default. And let's try a little bit smaller, like 25. And let's put them in the heading. There should be room up there. If I go to mobile view, oops, it's not the keyboard shortcut. There we go. Interesting, yeah. It looks pretty good on mobile view, but that didn't look so good when it collapsed. I'll have to figure out how to maintain the spacing margin top with a breakpoint. Spacing. All right, so just margin top small. Margin, top, small. I think that's what I was doing wrong. No, I didn't do that wrong. big deal. I don't think it negatively impacts it on this page display. Looks okay, it's hard to tell. Yeah, this is a little bit janky here. So that might be a row and then columns there. All right, let's add a few more types of activities here. Just the basic activity card looks decent, so I'm going to copy it in a few times. Okay, I didn't get that right. Right here, card. Down to here. Margin top, I guess. Or margin bottom. All right, one appointment, one shopping, one outing, one call. Something to get the point across. So this one will be shopping. And there was a shopping basket, I believe, right here. Let's see. Should be in chronological order. And they can both participate in that. Well, let's see, actually I need that. And 25. And float end. See how those. Yeah, not bad. The third one will be a call. So like video or phone. I'm not sure how many people are going to be recognizing this telephone icon much longer, so video is where it's at. Oh, yeah, we go back up. Camera video. There we go. And let's just get a couple of ideas for other activities. Okay, this is maybe a little bit better for shopping cart. What about nature? Trees? Well, trees. Or outdoors? Let's see. Tsunami. No. Park? Okay. Entertainment? Theater? Alright then. Activity? Yeah, I get it. It's kind of group. Yeah. Like an errand? Let's see. Let's try an errand. Yeah, it's something about going out, like outing. Doesn't have to involve food. There's different types of outings, but yeah, I don't know how specific these categories should get. Might need to look through the noun project to get a better idea. I think outing would be a good one. Just, no particular agenda, just hanging out. What would be an icon to symbolize that? The cafe was a good one. Entertainment, outing. There's quite a lot of these. Perforated. There we go, entertainment. Oops. Take it perforated, maybe it gets the point across. And I don't know. Pretty busy, pretty active group. I think nature's a good one. That could be also done under outing. Let's try that nature. Tree. I should mix up the participants. So So they're, the point is that they'll divide it equally, and one person won't have to necessarily carry the whole load. So let's see, I'm here under call. Go down to nature, night tire, fix that. Grab the wrong one. Dang it. One more. And then I'm going to take a break. This is pretty good. 2 hours sketching it out, and link back to groups, I suppose, if there's multiple groups. The main point is the group page, though, and that you can participate and add members. You'll probably need to add some appointment details and things like that. Errands as a way of reminding the participants what the activity is. Just almost at the end. I'm going to scroll through these, see if I get any other good ideas. Looks. Yeah, we'll do cup. And one more nature on the. And this would be, what did I say, outing? And can you tell? Or would the cup and straw be better? And by that time, everybody's tired. They're going to take a holiday from their activities. Wow, very active group. All right. So yeah, that's coming along, and I suppose, I don't necessarily need the group John, but yeah, let's actually clean up a little bit, and I'll do a recap. Great. All right, let's take a look at what we did. Got URLs, pi, groups, and group. I'll mention the Bootstrap quick start, and then the repository, and essentially the progress, demo, and code. Welcome to the recap of today's CodeBuddies.org live code hangout. Today I've been working on a new project. Previously I set up a scaffold or a quick start project that gives us a way of getting a Django project with a custom user model, Bootstrap, and a register and login and log out flow. Really basic stuff, but it takes like an hour to set that up initially and maybe a little bit more to research that. So I thought it would save a little bit of time. And I created that as a template on GitHub. That means that you can create a project from this project. When you click this button, it'll ask you for the name of the repository. And what it essentially does is copies all the files and creates an initial commit. So it doesn't preserve it in the commit history necessarily, but you do get the file structure in place. So you can feel free to use this template to start your own projects. Now, this new project that I'm working on is a prototype. I'm just wanting to start with some kind of medium fidelity mockups. I've gone through on Canva and created some quick sketches of some user interface ideas for this project, but let's just go ahead and check out what the idea is. It's essentially a group care app where multiple people can coordinate care for a friend or loved one. And you essentially start a group, and in this case you can specify the person, so it's like a hub and spoke model where people are caring for a common person. You can add members to your care group, and this is all just HTML mockups, so none of the functionality exists yet. And coordinate activities mainly right now. So you can have appointments, for example, shopping, or have group calls, run errands, basic high-level categories of activities that you might want to facilitate. But that's essentially it so far, and each member of the group can log in and decide whether or not they can participate in an activity, and that way it's not left to just one person to kind of shoulder the responsibility of their loved one's care. Hopefully the whole group can participate in any way that they're capable of. If they're not living in the same city, they might participate in calls, for example. But they could, again, help with errands, or just do enriching activities like going for walks in nature, or, entertainment, and just casual outings. So let's take a look at the code, and it's not very many lines, and we'll just look at how to wire up basic mockups with Django. So really all I've done here is extended this project that already had some accounts URLs with some mockup URL patterns, and each of these just renders a template. And so I created two new templates, one for the groups list and the other for a particular group, and gave them corresponding routes. So there's no dynamic code or any backend database or anything like that. It's just static HTML with Django kind of routing things. The idea is that if these templates come to more full fruition, then we can wire it into a backend and potentially an API and potentially another mobile app framework like Flutter with material design. But one step at a time, just getting the idea into reality a little bit out of my mind, and in a medium fidelity way. Not a lot of details, but it does require more work to write the HTML. So the group's listing page is essentially a Bootstrap using Bootstrap card essentially for each group. So we go back to the groups there, and pulling in some images from Unsplash, and specifying the image dimensions, and giving it a little bit of rounding, which actually might not be necessary. Let's see how that works. Anyway, I shouldn't be editing the code. I started off with a horizontal card, but it didn't work out for some various reasons. I don't know, top and start, it's not using relative terms anymore. I guess so. We'll leave that in place. And that's about it. So you have the name of your group and maybe a little bit of a description and a button to view the group, which will, ultimately, hopefully dynamically insert the group ID or whatever the URL slug we use. And once you get to the group page, it's just another bunch of Bootstrap components. But what I've done is got a header with a rounded circle Unsplash image and the title of the group. So they display cleanly, looks decent. There's a little bit of, maybe I'm not that skilled of a designer, but there's room for improvement on alignment and layout and things like that. But the next thing, we have a row and with two columns, left column and right column with four, I guess it would be 4 column width, and this just fills in the rest of the space. And a little bit of margin I needed to add for when it gets into mobile view. The left column is the list of activities, and basically each activity is following the same pattern. So I'm going to go to each of those individually, but it's a card with a card body, and the title is just displaying an icon from these Bootstrap icons, and the participants' photos. I believe that most of the activities will have like a date associated with them, but that could become an optional field. So we're just displaying some muted text with the date there, and a button to participate, which would ostensibly add you to the participants list. That way the activities can be group activities, like going shopping together or having a group call. And really that's it. So we just repeat that. And the members list is not too complicated either. It's essentially also a card, which I kind of was hesitating whether or not I should use cards for everything. Simple heading might suffice here. So I might, instead of having the border box. But anyway, we've got a card, title, and a rounded button, round circle button with just the icon, which hopefully will communicate the point. I can use an alt text perhaps to, when you hover on it, that you can add people to the group, and it'll probably have some kind of an invitation mechanism. I believe the default behavior that is that all the groups should be private. We won't necessarily have a directory of groups, and we'll have some kind of universally unique ID for each group, so you can't really just guess. And probably an email invitation mechanism. But if we do start to get into a mobile app design framework like Flutter, we might be able to use phone numbers or something like that and have notifications. But that's much further down the line. First, we've just got to get the idea through various stages of prototyping and ideation and feedback. So I think these static templates can give something visible, somewhat tangible, and get some feedbacks and suggestions for improvement early on. And basically after the members list and action button, there's just again the rounded circle icons for each of the members. We're displaying them at different size where appropriate in the user interface, but that way we get the people's faces throughout the app. It makes it feel a little bit personal, because it is essentially we're helping people connect and coordinate and care for one another. So the other aspect of this app is, in addition to the hub and spoke model, so to speak, where a group of people are coming around to the care, providing the care needs for one person, it could be a mutual care group where A group of friends or family want to make sure that everybody's doing all right. They might be living in different cities or around the world, or having social distancing issues as we're all experiencing right now. So wanting to check in on each other, schedule calls, maybe hang out every once in a while, So it would be a mutual care group. And I think the model would apply the same, really, instead of without even probably any substantial changes to the hypothetical data model. Granted, this is all hypothetical. You would just have a different group avatar, I suppose. Instead of being a person, it would be a group of people more generically represented there. But yeah, so there's, I think, some good potential here and very important need to fill with helping each other, through tough times and keeping each other on a healthy track in our lives and looking out for each other's well-being. So I won't go too much longer on this brief introduction to the code session today, but the code is open source on GitHub, so you can check it out. And I'm open to any ideas or suggestions, and so do feel free to drop me a note. This has been a CodeBuddies.org live code hangout. If you'd like to get involved with this or similar groups, stop by CodeBuddies.org. Thanks for your time. Have a great day and stay well.